that and get that sorted. We're glad that you guys could be here. Awesome. Well, I think we can go ahead and get started. Well, welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Local Search Expert Series. And as I was saying earlier, the final webinar of 2024. Today, we are going to be diving into the wild landscape of local SEO. It has been an interesting year to say the least, and I feel like 2025 is going to be just as crazy, if not crazier. So, we're going to recap some of the biggest trends and updates from this past year, 2024. And then we're going to provide you with some actionable tips and strategies to prepare for 2025. With the rise of new search engines like SearchGPT, which got some pretty interesting updates just as of yesterday, as well as Perplexity, the digital landscape for local businesses and online search and how businesses will, and even agencies helping businesses get discovered has never been more exciting. And so I think we're going to have a really good discussion today. We're joined by one of my favorite guest speakers who I'll introduce in just a second. But before I do that, let's quickly go over a couple of housekeeping items. So if you're tuning in right now live, if you look to the right side of your screen, you should see a white rectangle box with a few tabs. As a lot of you have already seen, we have the chat tab, and this is where you can say hello, offer your own thoughts, your own insights, ask questions, introduce yourself to the rest of the audience. We want this to be a very conversational, interactive discussion. If you also have the docs tab where we've provided some additional resources if you'd like to continue your learning or learn more about some of the things that Birdeye does. One of those I definitely recommend checking out is the LinkedIn link. We do a really, really great job of posting some super helpful, educational focused content, all geared towards helping businesses succeed online. And then if you have a Q&A, or if you have a question, you can also submit that into the Q&A. We try to keep the chat and the Q&A, open at the same time so we don't miss anything. But sometimes the chat could be a little bit crazy and we may miss a question. So if you want, you can also submit your question in the Q&A. Either way works. With the folks who are tuning in from Australia or the UK, there's a chance you may be tuning into the rebroadcast of this webinar, but that's okay because we do have experts behind the scenes waiting to answer your questions in the chat. And if we do answer questions from the chat during this live broadcast, we'll do our best to make sure that we relay those questions so that nobody misses anything and there's no, communication issues. But if you are tuning in during the rebroadcast of this, feel free to comment in the chat, ask questions. We've got people, I'll be in the background, making sure everything is running smoothly so we can answer any questions you may have. So just a heads up on that. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming one of my favorite guests to join us here in the Local Search Expert Series. In fact, he's actually the first guest we've ever had on for the series, Steve Wiideman. Steve is one of the top local SEO experts in the world, and he's our source for all things local search and SEO. He's the founder and CEO of Wiideman Consulting Group. He's a writer, a scientist, a professor, and practitioner of SEO. He's the author of SEO Strategies and Skills, and as an adjunct professor at UCSD and CSUF, Steve is in tune with everything that's going on in the world of local SEO. And I'm so thankful that you're able to spend an hour with us, Steve. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Fantastic, Justin. Thanks for having me. And why, with an intro like that, I'm really, at the end of the day, I'm just a nerd like the rest of us. I'm the scientist part really just comes from our exploration of all the new things that are happening in an industry that changes every second. Even yesterday after our conversation, OpenAI said, hey, it's day 8 of our 12 days, and here's what's new. And both of us were just nerding out on that and sharing what's happening. And I think that's the exciting part of our industry and who we get to be as SEOs, right? We get to be these analytical beings that have to study and research, but we also get to be those who focus around behavioral science and understanding intents and needs of people that we're writing content for, while still being charismatic enough to do some outreach and network to build links to our sites, knowing how important links are as part of an industry. So this multifaceted character, multi-personality we have to carry, makes us very interesting humans and probably the top of the nerd chain, right? But thanks for having me. I'm very excited to talk about multi-location and local SEO and kind of what's happened this last year and what's going to probably happen in the next year or two. So thanks again for having me.
Yeah, definitely. And it really is a science. There's a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of trying to figure out, the best approach and the best solution for things. And it feels like the landscape of local SEO is currently and is about to undergo a big shift. It feels like we've got some new players entering the game, like I was saying about Search GPT and Perplexity. Google still, even though it feels like maybe they're losing their grip on some of the market, it still feels like they've got a whole lot of great things coming out with Gemini 2.0. And Google is still Google, so it's not like that's going to be something that's going to be completely, gone from search. So there's going to be there's just a lot more that people will need to be tuning in for. So let's go ahead and jump right in. And Steve, I think a good place for us to start is let's take a quick look at 2024 and some of the key trends and, the updates that you've seen that you feel, what are some of those trends and updates that you feel like have carried a lot of the impact for local businesses this year?
Sure. I think the biggest change, I think everybody's aware of this, and it's been something we didn't really talk as much about at a broader scale, is this whole AI, this generative AI. We already talked about open AI as one, and just in prep for today's webinar, I have brought out my Perplexity coffee. Yes, they make coffee now. So, and it is actually really good, surprisingly. With all this generative AI, how are we going to make sure our business appears when people are using ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and Copilot and all these different AI enhanced search engines? I think that's the biggest trend in terms of scarcity mentality. We weren't really as scared of it in 2022. We were definitely exploring it in 2023. And in 2024, we were like, all right, we need to make this happen. Where do we focus our time and our energy? And then there's this just explosion of prompts that are coming out across the web, and no centralized place for us to learn and to build strategies that incorporate these different AI tools. So I'm hoping the industry looks at that in 2025 as an opportunity for us to create some standards and some best practices where it's not just 1,000 SEO people selling, $500 courses of their own, but instead we create something that the industry can use and build some standards to protect from spam, and by also helping us to grow together and making sure that we're providing great experiences, where people are searching. So very, very kind of excited for how that evolution, has evolved and where it's going. The other part is, of course, the different places that people are searching. I think Dwayne Forrester did this big talk about this at State of Search last year, where he showed some statistics showing that Gen Z and Gen Alpha, I didn't even know Gen Alpha was a thing, right? That those folks are starting to search TikTok and social search more so than Google. They don't trust Google. They think Google is listing organic listings that are that were created by SEOs, not by genuine algorithms that pick on what's going to be the most helpful to them based on their interests and based on their influences, right? I think you can pick up the key ideas of both of those there. But it's important for us not to be myopic around Google web search. It's not going anywhere just now. The market share and the shift over in people using other search engines isn't that drastic yet, and Google's not going to depreciate a product that everybody uses. So you're not going to wake up tomorrow and it's just going to be answers. I have a suspicion that Google is not going to want to get rid of a product that's still in use. But as people stop using it, as they start using more of these generative AI tools and their Gemini tool and so forth, there may come a point where they'll say, hey, by the way, in a year from now, we're going to start depreciating, this particular search. Give us your feedback. Do you like that idea? I think they're going to do a little bit of that from their user base before they just make a big decision of just lopping off, any page past page one of Google. So we need to think about social search like TikTok and Facebook. I don't know if you've done this. Anyone who's listening, if you open up TikTok, which you should be, since a big chunk of your audience are there, and you do a search for a local business, and then go to places, there's an actual places tab, you can see where you appear in TikTok's places list. That's really important because, again, a lot of our users, our younger users in particular, are using that type of search. There's also generative AI search. We were just talking before the event a bit about some of the cool features that were released yesterday, like the little Santa AI. Like my kids and I were talking to Santa, and they were giving me a hard time because now they're adult kids, and they're like, "Dad, we don't want to talk to Santa." And then they got the creative idea to get inappropriate, and it became a really awkward conversation with OpenAI's Santa. So we need to think about generative AI and where we're appearing there. And then what about where people aren't searching with words, but they're still searching, where they're doom scrolling in something like Google Discover? I think that's really important, especially for Android users who use Google Discover, or someone who has the Google app and the first page in their Google app is the search box plus several different Google Discover things. And I don't know if you've noticed, but just like TikTok, you can select not interested, show me less, show me more. You can interact with notes and comments on things in Google Discover in the same way that you might in a social network like TikTok. So it's important that we create content that people are looking for, where they're just kind of doom scrolling, by understanding our audiences, not be, again, so myopic around keywords. Keywords are sort of what we've learned in the last 28, 30 years of search engines existing, and we're starting to need them a little bit less. We're starting to talk in full phrases. If you do watch that OpenAI video that was released yesterday, you'll see a lot of that, and them sort of pick on Google about the fact that you don't need keywords anymore. You can just have a conversation to get the information that you need. So I think that's really important. And then AI-driven rankings, of course, as well. I think there's a lot we need to pay attention to and figure out attribution. We can track when a user comes from a Google search. We can add some parameters onto our Google Map URLs to our website so that we can segment our organic from web search and map search. But we really can't track a lot of what's coming from AI, especially what's coming from these things when someone's doing a voice query. So there's a lot we need to work on, I think, as an industry, as a community, so that we can better understand the work that we're doing and the results that we're getting from it. Otherwise, just like at my first kind of big corporate job at Disney, going to my boss and saying, "Hey, we really need to do SEO," and he says, "Yeah, it's great, but we can't prove ROI on SEO the way that we can with pay-per-click." That's going to be the challenge that all of us digital marketers have to figure out as we persuade our stakeholders to test and to give us an opportunity to get our feet wet with generative AI SEO, because our competitors aren't going to wait for us. We need to get in there and start doing it, and we need to figure out how we can quantify it so that we can get the budget to actually start working in an environment like that. So anyway, that's kind of where I saw 2024 was a lot of this evolution of the use of AI and the different places that people are starting to search. Not that people are going away from Google, they're just searching other places as well now. And so it's important for us to to pay attention to that, not ignore the different ways that we can be found, and have a holistic strategy for search that goes beyond just Google Web. Anyway, that was a lot.
No, that was perfect. And I feel, we've got a few questions here. And so one of the questions that we received, or actually two of them, are related to the potential for I think it was the January 19th ban on TikTok. And are you caught up on that right now, Steve? Is there anything that you've heard when it comes to the ban?
On some of the legal things that are going on. It's not just TikTok, as you know, Google's probably going to have to sell off Chrome as well. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories about how Google uses Chrome data and whether or not it might or might not affect their search engine results. So there's a lot of different things that are happening. I tend to not worry about the legal things until we get closer to them actually happening. I focus, again, on where our business objectives are, transactional queries that we know are important for us and how we're addressing them, how we're managing Google's really tough stance on helpful content, right? And in some cases, discriminating against site owners that have great content that they might believe are using AI to create their content, but maybe they're not. So these false positives are really hurting some of our clients. So we have to pay attention to sort of the urgent needs a little bit more than the what ifs. But we definitely listen, right? I'm for sure hearing all the things being talked about in search engine land and search engine journal. But I just kind of put a pin in them and keep an eye on them and focus in on where our key business objectives are.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the things that I've realized is it's hard to prepare for things that have not yet happened in that sense. Especially with the legal stuff like this, there could be something, right now it's planned to be banned in January of 2025, but it's not guaranteed. And so, working with the things that you can for right now and plan for versus the potential for something to happen is probably 100%. The way to go. Let's see. I think we've got another one here. Let's see. And then, CS is asking about the OpenAI video yesterday. So every day for the last couple of weeks, they have OpenAI has been running a live stream. Actually, there should be one right now on YouTube, but they are announcing a new update, a new release.
Bye, everyone. It was nice seeing you.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that as I said it, but it is interesting how they're doing this. And yesterday they did announce, although I do know today's is more geared towards developers. And yesterday's was particularly interesting because it was about SEO or search. And they actually made Search GPT available to all users, including those with a free account. And so if you haven't had a chance yet, I definitely recommend checking that out, searching for your business, searching for really anything, and just seeing those types of results. And we've got a couple of examples that I'll show in just a moment. And we'll talk more about these other search engines and stuff and how, you can prepare for those, because the approach, and Steve, I was telling you this yesterday during our practice run, but the more things change in the world of SEO, the more they stay the same in the sense, as we'll talk about here in just a moment, there's still some core foundational things that every business should be doing, regardless of the search engine that's pulling up the results, to help put them in a position to succeed, as well as some other things that they could do to help prepare. But let's go ahead and dive in a little bit more. Let's talk about the going beyond Google approach, because historically, really, in terms of SEO or your online reputation, the only player that you really needed to be concerned about or focused on was Google. And it seems like that might be shifting a little bit, as we've talked about. Can you dig into that a little bit more about this going beyond Google?
Sure. And I do want to make sure everyone kind of looks at that as an expansion, way to expand beyond Google. It doesn't mean let's shift all of our focus elsewhere, because as you've noticed, Google isn't going anywhere, and they are getting better with how they're adopting and putting in their AI products into search, particularly with their Gemini product. So I wouldn't want to say forget Google, they're dying, they're going away, Google's dead at all, because from my understanding, they really haven't lost any of their traffic, and people still Google things until they stop, right? Which could be years from now. But we want to look at it as more of an expansion. Where should we be putting our focus, in the new year? Where can we, outside of Google, where can we find our best customers? And I think the first place to start is in-house, and just asking your customers, hey, when you're searching for things these days, if you weren't using Google, where would you go? How would you search? And they're like, oh, I'm an iPhone, and I like to use the GPT app, or I use an Android, and sometimes I just use like Gemini. Find out those things so that you can help build a business case to start exploring. Maybe take your marketing efforts and allocate, I don't know, 2 to 10% of your resource time toward exploring those different areas. I think that's going to be a big part of it. You have a slide up around reputation management beyond Google business profiles. And you see this now if you perform a search. I was doing one yesterday for one of the restaurant chains we work with, and I noticed some of the reviews said reviews from other websites, and it was like a Facebook was in there, and they had like 80 likes to their Facebook. And I was like, well, that's really interesting that Google would pull that right into, the knowledge panel of their search results and sort of give traffic to another source like that, or give attribution. I thought that was really interesting. So it is important, that not just from where are we optimizing from, but also making sure that we're not just telling every customer, leave us a Google review. We get really addicted to that. And I think that the problem with that is that AI, particularly those that aren't owned by Google, are using reviews across the web as part of their data source. When you perform a search in ChatGPT for something like, give me a well-reviewed steakhouse in a particular city, it's going to look at reviews all across the web, and you're probably not going to see a lot of Google reviews in there either. You're going to see a lot of the Facebooks and TripAdvisors. I think Yelp's still blocking AI, but there are a lot of other third-party sites that are great opportunities for us to get new brand awareness and to build our reputation. So start allocating some of that review request suggestions to other platforms other than Google, because that's going to play a role, I think, in in how AI is deciding where we rank. I remember there was a bit of a loophole that we found with somebody who was using a exact match domain for like OC best breakfast or something like that. It was really kind of strange. And they used a title and a heading on their page, and they were able to game the generative AI temporarily. I wouldn't waste any time or resources doing it now. But I saw that happening. And what was interesting is when I asked, why did you choose this list of results? Of course, it cited its sources of where it came from, but it also said that it's a local favorite, and it used language that I thought was really interesting about how people in the area really enjoy the restaurant. And of course, I went to that one little dedicated landing page that particular restaurant had created, and it was just like a waffle restaurant or something. And they'd use language like that, like a favorite among locals and put in city. And so they tied in some of the language that they presumed or guessed that customers might be searching when they're using full questions as opposed to just keywords the way they might in Google. So we have to think a little bit about how we're using these different AI tools, and one, seeing where we appear, and two, seeing where that content opportunity might be, to pull in and garner some of that insight into our content development. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I do have kind of a fun example of it. I could put together like a little mock case study as we think about 2026 expanding beyond just Google and what we would do. And let's say like we're a brand like Nordic or Getaway Spas or Jacuzzi, or let's say we're Jacuzzi, and I've worked with them in the past, so we'll use them as an example. One, we established kind of what our SEO challenges are. 2026 might be appearing for competitive keywords such as best outdoor hot tubs, where Google's probably showing Better Homes and Gardens, Reddit, and maybe California home spas and patio, which tends to appear for some of those broader queries. Two, appearing for hot tub store near me. That's really important, particularly for their dealers. And they're likely competing in that 3-pack of map packs in Google. And now there's a map pack in Search GPT, which you probably saw in the video yesterday if you watched it. And Jacuzzi is likely competing in the local web search results below that 3-pack as well, where you normally find Yelp and Home Depot and probably Lowe's. And third, they're probably trying to get their product refinement pages, such as 2-person hot tub or outdoor hot tub under $10,000 to rank better. So the next step for them is going to be really kind of deciding where they want to appear and creating a baseline, and whatever SEO suite they tend to use to track their keyword rankings, and whichever one adopts and uses the search engines that are really important to them for their 2026. Are we tracking AI overviews? Are we able to track YouTube and ChatGPT? So then it's kind of figuring out, where do we need to appear? Is it Google, Bing, Copilot, ChatGPT search, Perplexity? Is that Perplexity Coffee again? Gemini, TikTok search, Google Discover, YouTube, whatever those are, we need to figure out kind of what our baseline is and put some time into doing that. Phase 1 research is really around where are we ranking in each of those search engines that are going to be important to us, even if it's just taking our main service tag, what we do and where we are, and seeing exactly where we rank in those different search engines. Where are we ranking for authority-driven content that drives links and shares and ultimately brand awareness? A lot of ideas stem from things like enhanced glossaries, where even if in an answer environment where there's not web search results, we could get cited because we've got something that the other definitions and Wikipedias don't offer, and that's that first-hand experience. And then lastly is the using generative AI with research. So here's where I imagine a brand like Jacuzzi saying, hey, chat, I think that's what they used in the example yesterday. I pulled all of the titles and headings and linked phrases from my top 5 competitors in Google. Can you give me a page outline for a piece of content that incorporates all of these important topics? Hey, wonderful, thanks. Can you give me the structured markup that I could use for this page to help search engines better understand the meanings of the words I use so I can pass that on to my developer? Oh, wow, thanks. You've given me the perfect outline to address all the intents my customers have and the coding I need to help search engines, really correlate that. And then third, doing the work, right? So start by creating a content optimization cadence that's assigned to different team members. One team member, maybe that team member is pulling their Search Console insights and third-party insights for improving the existing content once a month. Here's a page that's really important to us. Maybe it's a 2-person hot tub in Anaheim, California. That's an important page for us. So let's get that page up. Let's get it optimized based on what we learned from Search Console, what we learned from our third-party tools, and of course, what we're learning from generative AI by simply asking, what are some things that customers will be looking for when they're doing this particular search? The other resource would be perhaps pulling competitor XML sitemaps and our own XML sitemaps into AI and saying, hey, can you help me find the content gap here? What pages do my competitors have that I don't have that I should be looking at for my roadmap for the next year? And can you help me prioritize them? Next, for dealers specifically, maybe an AI-enhanced framework for local SEO. Justin, you hit on it a minute ago around fundamentals. Like, we don't want to just forget those and go, hey, let's just think about AI search from now on, because even AI search as it relates to local is still fundamentally based on local SEO principles, such as business data discrepancies. They're not going to show a location where there's 3 different or 4 different versions of an address, and they're not really sure where to point you to. So number 1 is identifying those business data discrepancies, and I'm pretty sure Birdeye does something with that. Discovering new directories and citation opportunities. So you could use third-party tools and come up with a big list, or just do a Google search for your competitor's address and phone number, or address and business name in quotes, and find all the different places that are out there. Put them all into a list, dump them into your open AI or Search GPT and say, or Perplexity, and say, consolidate these into one list of citation opportunities for me, and then prioritize them. And it'll give you some really good ideas of where to start. Third, developing a sitemap plan to improve SEO forward pages needed to address multiple near me queries. Similar to how IHOP has, if you look at each location for IHOP, they've got delivery, takeout, specials, catering, and their primary page contains localized content that today could be created by simply going to GPT and say, give me some information about the city that I have a location in and tie it into what we do. And it's going to say, oh, you're a restaurant. You can tie some content into going for a picnic at such and such park. Stop by our breakfast restaurant in city. And so we can tie in some hyperlocal content using AI for inspiration. Then we just mentioned reviews a minute ago. Extract sentiment and themes from, say, a copy and paste to generative AI tools of reviews that we've had, and say, basically, take these reviews and help me come up with specific topics and intents based on what customers are saying about me. Because now you're creating content based on what your customers' needs are, and not just based on keyword tools and topic insights. And lastly, of course, just scheduling those monthly meetings with the team and going through everything we just talked about and saying, how did we do this month with this? How did we do this month with that? How do we do with each of these different areas? How are we doing in ChatGPT? How are we doing in YouTube? Asking those important questions and getting accountability and assignment to the correct team members. I think that's really, if we're thinking about, what our cadence looks like, what our workflow entails in 2025, this sort of creates a foundation for it. And I think if all local businesses at least start incorporating 5% of their efforts into practicing and testing in these areas, they're going to see, at least slightly more success than the competitors who aren't. That was a lot again. Sorry.
No, all good. Yeah. We got a question about the slides of everything that you were just talking about. These are, so the part that you just covered, Steve, this was something that you had just put together that was not included within the slides. So just to let the audience know.
It was just storytelling. Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe we can
put together for you if you want.
Yeah, sure. Maybe. Yeah, I think we can do that. And then I can even add it here into the docs tab. And so If you guys want to see, more of the documentation of what Steve was talking about, you can check out the recording, and it'll be there in the link. So thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's a good segue into something I wanted to ask you about, though, is one of the things that I've noticed when it comes to these search engines or these AI search engines is the ability to ask follow-up questions.
Yes.
And I think that, and it's similar to the social media search, and not so much in the follow-up question way, but people are wanting answers. It's kind of that answer engine versus search engine thought
Right.
process, where people, when you're looking with Search GPT, you can ask it for the thing that you're looking for in more of a human way. And now, as of yesterday, you can use voice as well to ask it, and you can provide it context behind what you're looking for. It's like, I'm looking for, I'm having my kid's second birthday party, or let's say fifth. I don't have 2-year-olds eat pizza yet. Let's say my kid's fifth birthday party. We have about 20 kids, but we need to get pizza that can feed 20 kids. What's a quick delivery place around here? And so
Right. That's
all of
open
that
now.
stuff can get
Right.
put into the search, and it thinks about that in the context with the results it's providing. And then you can ask it, well, why did you provide those recommendations? And
Mm-hmm.
when you do that, and I encourage again everybody to try this out when they, you can go into Search GPT, is just ask it why. And I think that's a very powerful thing as well when it comes to SEO, is that it will tell you
Yeah.
why it put the businesses there for you, which is something you couldn't do with Google. You had to try
Yep.
to figure that part out on your own. And I think
You
that's
see the
something that
citations in that screenshot too, Justin, over here. You can see where there's citations. And if those citations are mentioning our competitors and not us, it's a quick win for us. We just need to go out to those different destinations and make sure that our business information is in there, and then test it again in a couple weeks. And I'll bet we'll see our brand appear just below the competitor, if not above them.
Yeah. And, I think a big part of this too is to think about, if you, let's say, to personify it a little bit, if you were a search engine and somebody was asking you, what are some of the things that you would think about when you're providing them suggestions? If you have this list of businesses and they have incorrect information, or if they don't have great reviews or good star rating, or they're not very engaged online, all these different factors, if you were to look at that yourself and be like, well, I can't really trust that this business is who they say they are, because on this website, they're Justin's, jacuzzi shop, and on this one, they're Justin's jacuzzi store, and the phone numbers are a little different. So I don't know if these are the same guys. And keeping that stuff consistent, similar to just a normal SEO best practice for ranking on Google, is the same thing that you should be thinking about for this as well. So that's kind of what I was saying back earlier, with the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Right.
And there's some of those foundational, you know, and then
That's
we
great.
did get a question from Denise asking if you could repeat your action steps to identify competitor content differences. And Denise, I think we'll be able to dig into that in just a little bit more with some of the things we're going to be talking about. But I wanted to shift gears, and we've talked, Steve, just during this conversation, we've already looked forward towards 2025. But I'd love to get more of your predictions. Maybe something that we can come back next year and look back on and see how they came to fruition. But
Sure.
in your mind, what are some
Yeah.
of those? What are some of those? Those hard, fast predictions that you have for 2025?
Right. We mentioned a few of them already. I think it's making sure we're paying attention to the different search engines that people are using, and not just being obsessed with Google. We're still paying attention to Google. We just want to make sure that we're not being myopic around it and just focusing on that. The other thing, I really feel like 25 is going to be the year where everyone's going to start thinking a little bit more about voice search. When you think of the Meta AI glasses, and you think of the new Search GPT and how you can interact with it on voice if you have the app, and you think about all the different ways that we're now actually using voice. We're not talking about the Google Home from 5 years ago and Google Action Console, where most of their features have been depreciated already, or Alexa, right? We're talking about broadly how we're going to be using search and saying hey to devices that are connected through our vehicles, that are connected through our home Wi-Fi, that are connected through our computers like Copilot, and how we're going to be not just solving the answers, the questions that people are searching, but start thinking about how we can hope we can actually produce a purchase or sale or an action or a reservation. How can we How can we get to that place? And it might require you talking to some developers, some folks that are really savvy with AI, and ask them, hey, I need to start thinking about 2026 and 27 and how we can make sure consumers can buy and purchase what they need to. Maybe not even having anything to do with my website. Maybe it simply has to do with my visibility and my presence, and our consumers' ability to make a purchase through Facebook using Meta AI, through Instagram, through TikTok, which you can do on your phones, but at some point we'll be doing it, using AI. So I think the prediction is let's start thinking about actions a little bit more than just answers. Answers are 100% going to be the focus of everyone's AI efforts next year. Be the one that's getting a little bit ahead and thinking about actions as well. And workflows, of course, you got that on the slide as well. What is our AI workflow? A few minutes ago, I gave you some examples of content workflow, at a page level for existing content and perhaps finding new content. And of course, I'll make sure we share that with everybody. But figuring out what that workflow is and testing the results of it, and then bouncing it off of other consultants and experts who have their own workflows and saying, hey, can you help me improve this? What would you do differently? How would you improve this? I think there's a lot of opportunity there to really streamline things thanks to AI. But please don't streamline the writing itself of the content, because even though there's not really a penalty for it right now, there could be. One of the local audits I did yesterday for a local garage door repair person, the reason they didn't rank was their content checked in at 100% confidence in originality AI as being AI written content. And they had probably the best content of anyone, and a perfect URL, a very fast loading page, everything checked out, but their content itself was all AI. And I just know in my gut that that's what the challenge was. So really, really work toward providing first-hand experience in all of your content as much as you can. Here's how we do this. Here's how we approached it. Here's an example. Here's a story. Here's a review. Here's a video of us doing what we do. Really, really beat the competition by taking that extra time to create content that's unique, that Google doesn't already know about, because that AI written content is just basically a compilation of all the content it's already got in its system and just rewriting it for your benefit. And that's not new, that's not unique, and that's not helpful. So, really try to focus around your workflow and incorporating things that are unique to your brand.
Yeah, and this reminds me of one of our past webinars where we did get a little bit more into the weeds on prompting and creating content with AI,
Right.
and some best practices on how to, approach it. Because, obviously it's an incredible tool and it should be used, but it should be used wisely.
Right.
And, not just copying and pasting blindly, instead using it to enhance those sorts of things.
Yep.
And we do get a lot of questions about, will Google flag me, or will I be punished for using AI generated content? And it feels like for the most part, it's the answer has always been yes, if it's not helpful, quality, truthful content. But if it's truly
Wouldn't it be
helpful
nice just
quality,
not to worry about it at all, though, Justin? Wouldn't it be
yeah,
nice just to not? If you're worried about it, then there's probably a reason. So don't work on things that make you worry. Work on things that make you confident that what you're doing is going to work. What was a moment ago? You had mentioned something around prompts. I'll definitely share some of those. But I was really impressed with myself the other day. It was the first time I created an entire content brief for a client in the medical industry in 90 minutes flat, thanks to the help of AI. With AI, I was able to extract all those different topics and terms and entities that appear on competing pages. I was able to take all my data from Search Console and from third-party tools and literally just dump it into OpenAI's chat and say, hey, could you build me an outline that incorporates all of these different topics and intents and entities that I found from, about 20 minutes of research. And within seconds, it had all of it. Oh, yeah. And can you please create 5 FAQs for me? Here's some keyword insights that I found from third-party tools, but help me come up with some of our own as well. And I was able to create the perfect outline, for the page to address all of the different intents and needs and topics and keywords that are important, to search engines and to potential customers. 90 minutes flat for a content brief. So if we can do that now, it streamlines our content creation process significantly. We don't need to use AI to write it. we've done all the research, and we can use that, give it to one of the experts on the team. And so what if we're only producing one page a week? By the end of the year, we'll have 52 incredibly well-written pages. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on AI content.
Yeah, and we did get a couple of questions in the chat that I wanted to touch on.
Let's do
And
it.
the first one I wanted to kind of cover, and this one I think was from a few minutes ago. But they're asking, if I have multiple locations, should the web address on my GMB go to my homepage or to my geo-targeted page? Furthermore, do I need to update my URL on all citation sources?
So there's two parts to that. The first part is, yes, if you do have a physical address in a city, the Google business profile that's associated with that physical address would point directly to that page. What you do want to do is test your other page that you had already pointed to, and the new page, to make sure that your local page converts as well or better than the other page did, because that's the trade-off. And it does help from a relevancy signal, and making sure if we're telling Google business profile all these things about this location, and then it gets to the homepage of your site and doesn't see all that information because you didn't send them to the page that does have all that information, that there's definitely a relevancy mismatch there. So I would test both, but make sure that the local page ultimately converts as good or better than the other page you were sending them to. The second part around the citations, I would do the same thing. I would make sure that for each location in your citation building, that all of those links point to the corresponding location page, because that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to get that page to be the one that shows up in search results and in the map pack and in web results, if we can do it. The third kind of bonus on that is just making sure in Google particularly that we're using a UTM code to segment, what came from web search. Otherwise, Google shows up as a referral source in your analytics, as opposed to being a strategic campaign that you're working toward. So I would use like the campaign medium of Google. I would use the URL medium as Google. I would use the campaign as something like Google_Maps, because they keep changing the name of Google Places, Google My Business, Google Business Profiles all the time. Just call it Google_Maps. And then I would probably have the UTM content be something like website, because that's the link text in Google Business Profiles as website. So that's something extra that I would do, just so that you can understand what's performing better, and segment, how well your map SEO is doing versus your web search.
Yeah, and we have another question that I wanted to, or at least, not so much of a question, but, Sean is saying that, as a marketing and business development coach whose mortgage company uses Birdeye, this seems, the things we're talking about right now seem like at such a high level that, you can't possibly implement on a local and nationwide level. And I think this is a perfect segue into the next thing that we're going to cover, which are some more actionable tips. What are some things that maybe somebody who isn't quite the full-blown, SEO expert or understands the technical side of things as deeply, right, what are some of those things that they can do to set themselves up for success? And, what are some of those best practices that they can start implementing?
I think it's a really important differentiation. So, because I know it's the local plumber who's trying to do their own digital marketing is going to be completely different than a 2,000 location restaurant chain. And then they're going to approach it differently, and they're going to have different KPIs and different team members who are available or not available to work on each of those different aspects. So I'm with you. So yeah, I did provide the list. I don't know if we got slides for it though.
Yeah, we do. And so we have it. We do have, some of these tips are geared towards small businesses. And then we also have a section for enterprise and those larger scale businesses as well. And so we'll go through both. But yeah, I think that's a great point, is just there are different levels, but there are things that you can do even if you barely have any experience on Google. There's still things that you can do to help put yourself in a good position. Right. Just when it comes to your basic online reputation and your best practices for that. So let's dig into some of these tips, and let's start with small business and some of the things that they should prioritize for 2025.
Wow, you put the full list in there. That's cool. That's great. So now you have all the context too. So for small businesses, we already talked about this a little bit with that mock jacuzzi example of really creating a baseline. Where are we right now? Even if you're just going to use a Google sheet or Excel spreadsheet, put a date on it of when when you created it, just so that we understand kind of where we are right now. Create a column for each of those different search engines that are important to us, including some of the new AI engines and search engines like Search GPT. I think that's really important to do. Block out a few hours to look at those results, right? Actually go out to the OpenAI, like Justin, you provided that screenshot. Everyone should be creating their own version of that and looking at the different citations and the appearance of our listing. Do we stand out, or does the competitor stand out? Why do they stand out? Could we stand out more? What could we do differently? We don't know. Let's ask GPT. Hey, how could I stand out in these search results? I think that's an important place to start. Citation sources, as we saw in that screenshot, if we're not there and our competitors are, there's a clue. And don't be afraid to ask. First question I asked Bard before it was Gemini was, how do you sort your results? Right? Why did you list these in this order? Right? I asked those questions, and back then it spit back all the same fundamental SEO principles that we've been talking about for years: relevancy, visibility in terms of links and how search engines crawl the web, and our appearance in search results. Because if no one clicks on our listing, they might infer that we weren't very helpful. Working with a platform like Birdeye, of course, to make sure our business data is accurate everywhere it needs to be and managed. Making sure that we're earning new citations and managing our reputation, because nobody clicks on a 3-star review. And if our competitors have a higher quality, quantity, and velocity of ratings than we do, it's likely we're just not going to get clicked on as much. And that's, of course, from Google's whole 7 court documents that were released over a year ago now, I believe, was an important signal for their search engine rankings. Local SEO Chrome extensions. I mentioned one here in context. Is this Polyper local SEO tool. There's a lot. There's a Phantom local SEO. There's local, so many of them. Explore and test different Chrome extensions so that you can actually dig into the data of the competition and see the attributes in the fields that they're using that we might not be. Maybe they're choosing different categories than us, and that's why we're on page 4 instead of in page 1. Maybe we should have used personal injury lawyer instead of broad lawyer. Maybe we should have used American restaurant instead of broad restaurant or bar and grill. So using those extensions give you, access to those insights that help you to pull all of that into your generative AI and say, now take all this insight that I just pulled and help me create a plan. And that's that last bullet. Create that plan. Get with the stakeholders of the team, right? The person who's the techie guy on the team, the person who's really good at content, the person who's really good at outreach and citation building. Get buy-in from those critical team members like the director, and say, here's what we estimate based on some of the keyword tools that we used of what we can drive to the business if we're able to really maximize search this year. And make it conservative because they're going to hold you to it, and then come back with a plan of, here's how we're going to attack all these different areas. I do think it's important too, if and I know the teams can be really smart and really creative, but even us as a consultancy will reach out to other consultancies and peers for a second opinion. That's really important to do. There's always some of that mindset of, we know everything, we can do everything. We've got YouTube, we've got Google, we can figure it out ourselves. That's great, but there's no harm in asking another consultant or someone to give you a second set of eyes or opinion. And I swear, every single time we do, we get new ideas, or we throw away an idea that would have been a waste of time. So it's worth it. Talk to somebody who's got some industry experience and just run it by them. Most of them might even let you run it by them for free if you ask them on a social group somewhere or in Reddit somewhere. You'll get a lot of that kind of free advice that might turn into something bigger later down the road.
Yeah, and I think with these tips, this could also be considered in addition to your core online reputation best practices. Assuming that you do provide a great service or a great product, and your business is run well and people do like your business, but you're still just trying to figure out the best way to have that shown online. It's generating reviews. It's finding tools that allow you to generate those reviews consistently, month over month, day over day. It's responding to those reviews. But the thing that really has changed now is that it's not, obviously Google is still the big dog, but there's still, with these other players, those sites look at other sites for reviews. And so now it's not just generating Google reviews, it's generating reviews from all these different other sites that people may be using, or that these AI search engines are using.
It is
You know,
amazing
and
to see the traffic we get from those sites too by having reviews. Yeah.
yeah, I'd be really curious to see the that type of data, to see if those websites that maybe historically have not gotten as much attention
Right.
are now, because these AI search engines are pulling from them, in terms of usage or
Hmm.
reviews or anything like that.
And GA4 does do a good job of segmenting social traffic, so you should be able to track a lot of that effort in GA4 if you're using Google Analytics.
Yeah, that would, yeah, I'd be really interested in seeing that sort of data.
So that's for
Um,
small business though, Justin. Then there's still one
yeah,
for enterprise, I believe, right?
yeah, let's check that out.
So if you are a larger business, of course you're going to do all those same things. They'll probably be owned by different team members. Following that SMB roadmap is basics. But you also want to work with your account manager, with your data management provider, um, just so that you can do some things at scale. Somebody mentioned earlier, yeah, it's really hard to scale some of these ideas. Well, I'd mentioned the IHOP example. That hyperlocal content is across every single location page, across some 1,600 locations. So it is scalable, but we had to do it in a manner that was semi-dynamic. There's some key themes that are in there, but the content itself is unique to that particular city. So it is scalable and something you could do. So testing some of the AI tools to help capture some of the localized data that you need, distance from freeway, nearest park, nearest college, university, history of city, things like that. There's a lot of that, the hyperlocal content you can pull in from AI at scale, right, running some scripts. Working with the individual franchisees and local managers to really help make that happen. So you could take in survey data. You could just send out a survey to every store manager, or do it at a micro scale with text messaging. Set some text messages up to every location, say quick question, right, and do that once a week. And by the end of the year, you'll have 52 questions that you asked about their location that's unique to their location, that feeds directly in from that reply into the system, into into their CRM. And then lastly, that back up that data as much as you can, because Search Console only gives you like 16 months of data. And it's super, super, super important to make sure that you've stored everything. BigQuery is a great way to do that and to help create some really amazing reports. And you can do so in a way with Looker Studio where it actually looks like Google Slides. Our Looker Studio reports have some KPI gauges, around traffic and revenue and store visits and so forth. And then it breaks it all down and has some seasonality and some other cool things, all of which pull from BigQuery. So all of our keyword ranking data, all of our Search Console data, all of our GA4, even our Google Business Profile insights, all of that can be pulled and stored and saved in BigQuery so that you always have it to spit out whatever reporting you want to in a Looker Studio. So that would be at an enterprise level what I would do, so that you can, at a high level, aggregate all of the individual franchise and multi-location data into one centralized place.
It's great. Yeah, and one of the things that I've thought about when it comes to the multi-location aspect is that as you develop, or as you increase your locations, the complexity of everything increases as well. If you have 100 locations, you have 100 Google Business Profiles, 100 Facebook pages, 100 Bing, reviews. You have it just scales exponentially, and it gets very difficult to, manage all of that. And kind of what we talk about with creating localized content, that also gets much more difficult to do it consistently, and at scale. But
Why
that's one of the
CRMs are
things.
so important.
Yeah, they really are. And there's, I think what's amazing about this time that we live in right now is that even though the landscape is changing, the tools and the technology to help you navigate that landscape are also evolving and using the same kind of technologies to help you. And that's one of the things that Birdeye does extremely well. When it comes to, and this is what I love about Birdeye, first off, is that this is something that can really help your online reputation, your search ranking, and you don't have to be a very hardcore technical SEO expert. These are things that you can do, as like you were saying earlier, the small business plumber can implement these things and use this kind of a tool to help grow their business online and develop that online reputation that attracts the attention of these search engines. When it comes to your reviews, with automated review campaigns, to be able to consistently ask all your customers for a review, because time and time we've seen that it really is a numbers game. The more reviews you request, the more you get. And if you, and we're always assuming when when we're speaking in this context that we assume that you have a great business. So let's assume you have a great product or a service and you're just not quite seeing that reflected online. When you ask all of your customers for a review, you will get more reviews. That's just the math of it. More people are emotionally charged and they'll leave a review unprompted when they're not happy, but it takes a lot more to get a happy customer to leave a review under their own volition. And so that's just one aspect of it. The tool also, Birdeye also allows you to respond to those reviews at scale, using AI, natural language processing type of AI, not just like the bot responses that that you see repeated on every single review response. But also with your listings and being, like we were talking about earlier, it's really important to have your information accurate across all of these websites that your website, your business is visible in.
It's going to save so much time.
Yeah, it really does. And it's such a small thing, but it carries such a large impact on your ranking. And what's incredible about this is that how we have been saying, Google's been king for so long, but these other websites that these AI search engines are crawling, they're looking at all of these other websites. And that's what's cool about Birdeye, is that you can actually generate reviews for over 200 different websites. So it's especially with Google too, but it does help you cover all of that ground. So if you have 100 locations and there's, let's say, 100 different websites that people are looking at for your business, you can manage all of that from one place, no matter how many locations you have. And we've talked a lot about gathering insights, understanding the data that's coming in, especially with your competitors. And this year in 2024, I think maybe not even so, not too long ago, just a couple of months, we came out with Insights in Competitors AI. And I would say these are probably my favorite features that we put out because of just how awesome they are. So with Competitors AI, you're able to generate a complete SWOT analysis of you versus your competitors in your market. Whether you have 100 locations, you can do it on that individual location level. You can do it by region. You can do it for a business as a whole. But essentially, Birdeye's AI scans or analyzes all of your competitors in your market, or potential competitors that you didn't even know about. So you don't have to enter your competitors in; it finds them for you, and it provides a breakdown of your strengths versus their strengths, your weaknesses versus their weaknesses, what their customers are saying. It provides you with what our Birdeye score, which is a consolidation of your customer sentiment, your online reputation, like your reviews and rankings, as well as your listing score and the accuracy of all of that data. We consolidate that into one very easy to understand number, and it would show you exactly what you can do to improve that score. And you can compare that number to your competitors. So you can see exactly, okay, according to my competitors, or my competitors' customers say that they are really strong because they don't have a long wait time, like if you're in urgent care. But when I look at our weaknesses, that's something that we seem to get a lot of feedback about, is these long wait times. And you're able to get that in real time at the drop of a hat. It's really pretty remarkable. And
well, any kind of final thoughts with us having like 60 seconds left?
Yeah. Yeah. And so before we jump off, and I think we may have a couple of extra seconds. I don't think it'll cut the stream off, but just wanted to say thank you, Steve, so much for joining us. Thank you to everybody. I felt like this was a great discussion to cap off the year, and hopefully we were able to provide you with some tips and advice on how to move forward into 2025. Remember, as things get crazier on the online landscape, sticking to those core foundational, best practices, whether it's with SEO, creating helpful, truthful, engaging content, or strengthening your online reputation and generating those reviews, those are going to be those core pillars that will help you succeed regardless of, where people are finding you, whether it's ChatGPT or Google. Those will happen. Steve, what about you? Any final thoughts before we jump off?
Yeah, I'd say don't have a sense of anxiety about this, right? Your traffic at the moment isn't going anywhere. As long as you're doing the same things you've been doing around local SEO, you should still be getting the same results. But our goal is to get more and better results, and that's where the opportunity comes into play. So have fun with it, explore it, kick the tires, break things. talk to other folks and about what they're doing and explore it as much as you can, while sticking to those disciplines and the cadences that you've already been working through in your existing local SEO. This is something that's exciting and it's emerging and it's new, but it's not something to be scared about. So, relax, breathe. Your traffic's not going anywhere right away. Just start having some fun with the different technologies, goof around, and ask folks like Justin and myself anytime you'd like to for ideas and feedback, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Is the methods may be changing, but people are still needing to search for you guys, for your businesses. The searching isn't changing. It's just how they find you is a little bit different, and so you just have to make sure that you're putting yourself in a place to be found. And I think as the time goes on, things will, we will learn more about how these AI search engines work, and we'll be able to have more webinars and more educational discussions on how to best position yourself for success.
No doubt.
But yeah, and I did see a comment earlier about someone was saying like, "Wow, I have a lot to learn," and that's what's pretty remarkable is this stuff. Like I read about this stuff every day. I'm in these tools every day, and I still feel like I know nothing. Like I even have a degree in AI and machine learning, and I still feel like I don't know anything. And it's one of those things that's it just moves so fast. We're in such an accelerated time, but I think sticking to those core foundational pieces, trying out new things, making sure that you're reading up, staying in tune, following, thought leaders on LinkedIn and Twitter and things like that are going to be very, very valuable. And especially, using tools like Birdeye as well, because we're, like I said, we're doing this stuff every day. We're making sure our products are up to date with all of these changes. And so, we're here to help and truly help businesses succeed online, because that's what we want to, we want that to kind of be the core mission here. So thank you very much, everybody. As a reminder, you'll get a link to the recording afterwards. Don't forget to check out the related resources under that docs tab. Follow us on LinkedIn to stay up to date with all of the blogs and reports that we put out. We also have a live stream series that we do every so often. But yeah, and until then, next time we'll see you. We'll have another webinar to kick 2025 off in January. So stay tuned for that. But we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.